Never do makeup with colored lights on. I'm blowing through it this morning. Oh, it's looking good, you know. Pink lighting. Then I turn the real lights on. I'm like, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. There's a line. I mean, I could get a makeup mirror, but that just doesn't seem manly. So anyway, I was walking around the house thinking about how people tend to make a big deal out of magic. Like they try to make it seem like it's some kind of fancy, mystical thing because that's how it's been portrayed, you know, in the world, I guess, you know, when it's really just like reality maintenance. It's like janitorial work for things you can't see. But anyway, somehow from there, I came to a conclusion that modern life was indeed rubbish. And that got me thinking about Graham Coxon. And if there was ever going to be a fifth member, and I understand why they don't, because it's a financial thing. You know, they probably have it set up good between the four guys now, and, you know, they don't want to cut another person in on that. But if they were ever going to, he would be the perfect guitar player for them. He does such a great job. Aside from one nitpick, which is the solo in the title track on Future Past. We needed something more heroic, and he came at us a bit avant-garde. But that's the only nitpick. Other than that, he's like the perfect guy for that job. And I know they've had Dominic for the past however many years as like a utility guy, a live guy. But he's a great musician, but he just doesn't fit in with them. I don't even mean like aesthetically, just, you know, you can't have a hired guy, a touring guy, and then make him be the guy, unless you Warren Cucurullo, of course. And I think, when Andy left the second time, well, actually, when Andy left the second time, I did too. Like, I pieced out, like, as soon as I found out, and just watched from a distance as the whole red carpet thing went down. Just pointed and giggled. Which I shouldn't have, because at that exact same time, like 2007, my shitty glam punk band was covering Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake. So I had nothing to laugh at. But yeah, I thought it was awful. Years later, like when I got to actually listen to it, it's not that bad. It's just a complete mismatch. Well, it's not a mismatch so much as it's like an album they're guesting on. But yeah, I didn't come back. God, I was out for a while. I didn't come back until Paper Gods. I got to admit. I know I like to tell people I've been a fan since 1982 because I have. But I dipped out. I was salty, man. Like, to me, it's like after they finally got back together, well, a lot of things went wrong. A lot of things went wrong with the reunion there. It took too long to get that album out, and I know they're trying to get a deal, and they had to kind of prove themselves by going on tour and generating some sort of hype for themselves. And then, like, they had trouble writing it, I guess. It was taking a long time to do that, too. So it's like all this shit. But the thing that sucks is now that they have all that stuff worked out, it'd be great, like, if they would do another one. But, you know, I guess it was the same stuff that drew them apart in '86. It's kind of replaying itself. And I read John's book and Andy's, and it's unintentionally hilarious how they both talk about, like, the same event, and they see it so differently, up to the point of one in particular, the Rolling Stones one, that in John's version of the story, Andy's not even there. He stayed at the hotel. And then Andy's version of the story, which I believe over John, because John will tell you he's an unreliable narrator and he has a hard time remembering a lot of that. In Andy's version of the story, John went because Andy just felt like he should invite him, but he was really drunk and he went there and made a fool of himself. In John's version, Andy wasn't even there. He stayed back at the hotel, and John had a great time with those guys, and they went out to breakfast with them or something. Just completely different stories. I don't know. Maybe the truth is in the middle somewhere. But I don't know if it was a north and south thing, or Midlands thing between those guys. That's a big problem with people over in England and the UK. They have that class thing going on that we kind of have a version of. Actually, in America, it's probably worse because it's drawn along political lines, you know? And that's just retarded. Like, everything's politicized to the point, like, even the jab thing. Like, if you haven't been jabbed, that means you support Trump. And you probably are ISTA this and phobic that and all this other kind of stuff. And so I think that, and not to get off on this subject, but I think that's why people get so angry. When they do, like, confront me in an elevator or something about it, about not having it over my nose, it's because they're not upset because they think I'm risking their health. They're upset because when they look at me, they see a non-compliance guy, and they see Trump, and they see their neighbor that they hate, and they see white supremacy, and they see all these things. They project all that stuff onto me, and that's why they get irrationally crazy, because there's no other reason for it. They don't know me, you know. Like, I get quite a few stories like that in my building, where I get in an elevator, and it's usually some guy that's probably used to fighting with people on Twitter. He's never been punched in the face before, so he doesn't have that filter, and he's just like, you gotta, it doesn't work unless you work correctly. Embarrassing. Not some, and again, I don't think it's because he's mad that I'm risking anyone's health, because I think deep down, everyone kind of knows it's not about health. But, I mean, not everyone, but I would say if you have a rational mind. But the thing is it's been drawn on political lines now, to the point where even though they know it's stupid, they have to go along with it because that's what their team wants. You know, if you pro Biden, you wear the mask and you get on your knees and you crawl. And if you don't, you're a Trump supporter. And also there's that other element of people not wanting to admit they've been fooled, or admit that they let their fear get a hold of them, and which made them pro-compliance. There's a whole lot of things wrapped up in there. I don't know how that ended up getting from Duran to here, but somehow it did. So we're going to go back to Duran. I get why Nick probably didn't want a full-time guitar player after Andy, because he always tried to minimize the rock part of the band, which I think was to his detriment, because I thought the winning formula for those guys was the perfect marriage of what, like, Andy was doing with the heavy guitar and Nick's mastery of weird sound is what made them. And as soon as they as the albums rolled on, especially when you get to Seven and the Ragged Tiger, you have sort of more Nick, less Andy, more sort of synthy, keyboardy stuff. And I just don't, I mean, he won't even say the word rock, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, he's not really a rock guy. And then having Warren in the band after Andy, who was just full-on heavy metal hero a lot of times, I think Nick just didn't want to deal. And, I know people don't like to hear it, but I think it's true. The controller, Nick, he is Duran. You know, I know he started with John and all that stuff. John's got his own things going on. He had a lot of vision too, of course, but the guy is Nick. He's the guy. He's Duran. Whatever. I know that people will object to that, but it's true. So I think he likes the freedom of being able to add what he wants when he wants and not having to be stuck with the guy he has to give parts to. But if they were ever going to do it and pull the trigger on that, Graham is the guy. I mean, if he would do it, you know, because even though he's done the album with them and he performs with them a lot at these like special gigs and these award shows and stuff like that, I still get occasionally, I get the feeling that he's kind of doing it ironically. If you know what I mean, like I don't know, I get that feeling. It might not be true, but I catch that from him. Because when you look at his background, you look at what they said about, you know, interviews about music in the 90s, you know, I just get the idea that he might have got into it in an ironic way, you know? I don't know. But if he would join and they could have him, they should take him because he's perfect, you know? Perfect for them. And he would give them, you know, a bit of well, I don't know, they don't need anything. I'd say, like, if they didn't have this career renaissance, which they're experiencing, much to all our delight, if that hadn't happened, I think there'd be more case for it. You know, like if this was like post red carpet, maybe but they don't really need to do it. I think they like the idea that they can say they're the original members, you know, because it is. I mean, and I think that, and plus there's a financial situation there too. So, I don't know. But if they were ever gonna, he'd be the guy. He's so good on that album, man. He's great. Aside from that one solo, he's amazing on that, you know. But I've listened again to Future Past quite a bit since the last review I made. I was watching my review the other day because someone made a comment on it. And my Future Past video is actually my most watched. You know, and when you have an average of 5 views per video, it doesn't need to scale quite a height to get there, but I think it's over like 1,000, which for me is kind of unbelievable. But so I was answering, so people still comment on it from time to time. And I was just talking to some guy who thinks said it sucks, he doesn't like it, and I get it, you know. I don't see how you could think that, but whatever, you know. But yeah, I was looking, I'm like, well, I actually have 3 videos about it. Future Past. One was the Future Past is Coming video, which is talking about what I hope for it. Actually, there was 4. I did another one that I thought just sounded too caustic and negative, and I didn't want people to get the wrong idea, so I took that off. And then I did initial thoughts on one, which was just like when I just got it, you know. And then like a week later, I did like a full. Oh, I'm crossing the street at the wrong time. I'd get a ticket immediately. A week later, I did more of a full one, you know, about the album. But even at that point, I'd only had it a week. Like I was dogging Hammerhead, and I love that track. You know, and it kind of makes me wonder. It's like, you know, these music reviewers who always try to review the newer shit as soon as it comes out, even the good ones, you know. It's like, how long have you know, even if you listen to it 10 times in a row, it's not a repetition thing. It's a time thing. You know, it's not the years, it's the mileage, as Han Solo said. So it's like, I know a lot of records, like every time Bowie would put out a new album, I'd say, this is dog shit, awful. And then like a month later, it's like, wow, this is the greatest thing he's ever done, you know? It's the best since Scary Monsters. his albums after Scary Monsters should have just came with that sticker on it, because every fucking time it's all it was. It's the best since Scary Monsters. And the truth is, none of them are the best since Scary Monsters. The only one that you could really make a case for, I think, to be as good would be The Next Day. You know, I like Black Star, but when people talk about it being one of his greatest, I think there's just a little bit of the whole fact that he kind of designed the release of it around his death and everything. Which, if you were really dying, that's not something you would do. Sorry. But, you know, we know he's not really dead because he eulogized himself as his friend from Castle Music. It's still on YouTube. I'm surprised it's still on. You could find that. And if even, like, I would say, well, maybe not a casual Bowie fan, but if you have a PhD in the man, like I do, or the equivalent of, you watch this interview and you're just like, oh, that's him, pretending to be a friend from a music company that doesn't exist. They did that with Michael Jackson. They did that with Prince. They don't kill these people. You know, a lot of people think when the elite, Illuminati, whatever weird Masonic group they're part of, kills a lot of these people, like Tupac or whatever. I don't think that they just take them off the board, because these people were playing a character to begin with. Some of their origin might be true, like what town they grew up in, but for the most part, a lot of the background stories of these artists are just completely made up whole cloth from top to bottom, you know? So anyway, yeah, really getting away. Well, there's nothing else to say. Graham Coxon should be in Duran, if they were going to get a fifth guy, which they're not going to get. So I guess this whole thing really wasn't no, I got to talk about future past. Oh yeah, and the fact that my thoughts on it didn't really match that video all that much, the review I did of it. I mean, the positives do, but some of the things I was negative about, especially Hammerhead, it's like, what was wrong with me? I thought Hammerhead might have been an outside songwriter track, and apparently that's not the case, because you learn a lot of stuff too. Like I did one for the Damned, Music for Pleasure, and then I watched the movie, which I'd watched before, twice, but I was in a different mood, which is another problem I have. I wasn't on drugs or anything. I had this, I had DID, for reals. You know, I'm not like, I'm not saying anybody pretends to have it, but you see a lot of people with that. I don't talk about it much because I don't want to have to take out the paperwork, which I'm probably going to do, just to show people, because it's a very rare disease, or illness, or ailment, or what the fuck it is, so. But anyway, yeah, sometimes I'll watch things and, you know, not remember watching them or whatever. But yeah, so then, man, talk about going off the road every 2 seconds. Music for Pleasure review, I watched that movie again. It filled in a lot of blanks, and it showed me some of the stuff I was wrong about. So what I'm saying, long story, very long, is that sometimes you need more time before you talk about these things, especially art. You know, art kind of, you change. You know what I mean? The art stays the same. You change. It's just your perspective that changes. And I can't say I feel the same way about most music that I did in the first week I had it. So I'd like to touch back on future past at some point in the future past. All right. Don't blame the teacher. Blame the school.